Basements can hold more than just junk in old boxes. From bones of long-deceased family members to possible taxidermied corpses, these are real cursed items people found hidden in their basement. This first story is absolutely wild. So imagine moving into the home you grew up in and finding bones buried under it. And not just any bones, but the bones of your father, who'd been missing your entire life. That's exactly what happened to a New York man named Michael Carroll. For years, Michael Carroll wondered about what happened to his father, George Carroll, who went missing in 1961 when Mike was just under a year old. His mother's story was always changing. She gave him the classic, oh, he left for cigarettes and never came back line. Later, she changed it, saying he went out to take the garbage and never returned. She even told him he left for a woman he'd met while serving in the Korean War. Now, after his mother passed away in 1998, Mike bought his mother's home, the home that he grew up in. He then consulted with psychics. One of these psychics pointed to a spot in the basement at one point, saying, "I feel this energy coming from here." And years later, using ground-penetrating radar, he confirmed that there was something buried 6 feet below the house. Mike began drilling through the basement floor, and you can't make this up, it was on Halloween that his sons made the grim discovery: human bones. Authorities soon identified the remains as Michael's father's, who died from blunt force trauma. Now, Mike had mixed emotions, saying, "We found him, and now it opens another bag of worms as far as 1,000 questions." Michael had his suspicions about who might have killed his father, but he didn't want to reveal anything publicly. From Reddit user Fonzie327 comes the bunny painting. In junior year of college in western Pennsylvania at a fairly large state school, my best friend and I are moving into our place. It's a big house on the far edge of town. We start moving some of the big boxes and stuff down into the basement. The basement was an unfinished concrete square, with a smaller room that you stepped up one stair into that contained the water heater and some other pipes and stuff. So we're looking around the basement as we move stuff down there, and we're in this smaller room. We start checking out some built-in shelves and their contents. There's a large painting leaned up against the wall about 3 feet tall, and we turn it around to take a look. It's a painting of a guy wearing a one-piece pink footy pajamas type thing with the bunny ears on the hood. He's got a blade in his hand pointed towards his stomach as if he's about to stab himself, with a big smile on his face. Now, this is creepy enough as it is, but here's the real kicker. We slowly realize he's being painted from inside the smaller room, looking out into the rest of the basement. The woodwork framing on the doorway he's leaning on and some other details are exactly what I'm looking at in real life. Oh, hell to the nah. We quickly moved the stuff down there and put a large piece of furniture in front of the basement door. We didn't go down there even one more time until we moved out at the end of the year. Alright, I talked about one set of bones at the top of the video. How about a house with 1,200 skeletons or so buried under the basement? A place like that's gotta be haunted, right? Beneath a home in Craven Street in London, over 1,200 skeletal remains were found, both human and animal. These bones date back between 1757 and about 1775, right when the famous American founding father Benjamin Franklin lived in the area. The home had been used by William Hewson, a pioneer in anatomy. During that time, it was illegal to dissect corpses, so Franklin offered his basement, turning it into a hidden anatomy school. This allowed Hewson and his students to study anatomy in secret. Pretty cool little piece of history there, but would you stay in this house if you found out there'd been thousands of bodies dissected in your basement? A now deleted Reddit user posted a story about their disturbing visit to a hoarder's basement while working for a junk hauling company. And yeah, they had a lot of junk to haul here, and not the typical kind. I got called out on a job to clean out a hoarder's house. The basement looked like it was an insane asylum that a serial killer moved into. Animal skins hanging from the ceiling, old-style sewing machines, newspapers covering up windows, and clippings of certain people, glass jars filled with something, stacks of wet mattresses, old-style bed frames, a few rats, mold. Yeah, I assumed there'd be mold when I was reading that list. Where do you even start with a place like that? I mean, animal skins hanging from the ceiling. Is there really saving that basement, or you just burn the whole place to the ground? Okay, prepare to see what's gonna haunt all your dreams tonight, and probably for like weeks after this. Take a look. This image appeared on Reddit with the caption heading, "Creepy doll someone found in their basement." And yes, I thought the exact same thing you're probably thinking right now. This does not look like a doll. I went through the comments and it seems like the image was originally shared on a Facebook group by a woman who simply said, "Doll I found in the basement." People started asking what the hell the thing was, if she actually found it in her basement or if she'd found the image somewhere on the internet. She deleted the post without having answered anyone's questions, and now we're just left with this ghastly image with all the lingering questions. Some people think she pulled the image off the dark web, and that's certainly possible. I have no idea though. I just know that I do not like it. Oh, and I'll go on to say that the top comment on the Reddit post of this doll picture is from someone I really hope was trolling, but you just never know with the internet. They commented about how wonderful the skin looks and went on to share some knowledge about taxidermying people. This led to other commenters becoming a little suspicious of the person, and one just outright asked if they were a serial killer, to which they never got a straight answer. Again, hope they're just trolling, never know. Imagine if you're spending the day helping a friend move some furniture into their house when you hear the floor start to crack. Then before you know it, the floor falls out from under you and you're plummeting down below. That's what happened to 67-year-old Christopher Town, who fell nearly 30 feet down a hidden well while helping his friend move furniture into a house in Guilford, Connecticut. The flooring gave way beneath him, sending him splashing into the cold water below. How horrifying is that? Town said he heard a crack and looked down to see the floor giving way underneath him, and then he was just falling. The well had been covered up during renovations done to the house built in 1843. The Guilford police explained that the well was once outside the home, but after an addition was made in 1981, it was concealed under nothing but wood flooring, which is insane. When firefighters arrived, Town was unable to touch the bottom of the well. He was just clinging to the stone walls, trying not to drown, and with temperatures dropping, he was becoming increasingly hypothermic. But rescuers were able to pull him out, and luckily he only suffered some minor injuries. He probably wasn't going to be helping anyone move after that though. In 2015, an elderly man named Klaus Dieter F. was found to have been hiding an army tank in his basement. And I know, whatever, like who doesn't have a 40-ton army tank sitting in their basement just in case of emergency, right? But this wasn't just any old tank. It was a German World War II Panther tank. Along with that, he had a stockpile of ammunition, firearms, and an 88mm anti-aircraft cannon. German authorities had raided his home, and he received a hefty fine and a 14-month prison sentence. Apparently this guy didn't just leave the tank sitting there either. He'd occasionally drive it, and even used it to plow snow. To be fair though, if you had an army tank and a big enough property where you could drive it around, wouldn't you? I guess you'd have to have a pretty large property though, if you got a freaking army tank and a cannon sitting in your cellar. In 2010, a family in Telford, Shropshire were having a few drinks and celebrating Good Friday when they decided to peek under a metal grid in their Victorian home. Pat and Diane Farla had been wondering what was under the grid for a few years, and they finally figured, why not? Let's just check it out. So their son Gareth and his uncle Matthew removed the grid and crawled into it. What they found was a nearly 200-year-old chapel sitting right under their house. Matthew told reporters, "The first thing we came across in the middle of the basement was an old open chest, and in it were old newspapers and bottles dating back to the 1930s. There were also hooks hanging from the ceiling which could have been used to hang meat. Hopefully, at one end of the cellar was a sort of mesh or cloth which was damp. There were also some sort of brick seats around the walls which looked like something you might find in a church." Now, this was a pretty amazing discovery. Not at all what they'd been expecting to find, but they were also a little spooked and even wondered if they'd accidentally released some sort of spirit into their home. Gareth went on to say, "After we discovered the basement, we went back upstairs and were taking some pictures. We took a picture of Matthew's pregnant girlfriend Karen. When the pictures came out, there was something white on the photo right by her belly. My mother thinks it's an orb, as the rest of the picture is clear apart from her belly, and my nan Peggy is quite superstitious and she thinks it could be something there. It could just be a coincidence, but it seems quite strange." People with shark phobias often stay out of the water, and whether it's the ocean, which Makes sense. Or lakes and pools, which is irrational, but hey, at least it's still water. One place people who are deathly afraid of sharks feel safe, though, is on land. And at home, I mean, you'd never even fathom finding a shark, right? But in 2017, police found something they were never expecting to find in the basement of Joshua Seguin, a pool filled with sharks, the majority of which were alive. There were 7 live sandbar sharks, 2 dead leopard sharks, and a dead hammerhead. He'd been intending to sell them. All of this was discovered after he was arrested in Georgia for driving without a license. Police found a bunch of baby sharks in a tank in the bed of his truck. Joshua admitted that he was transporting them back to New York, where he was going to sell them under his business name Aquatic Apex Life. And he also revealed right away that he had more sharks in his basement, so at least he was honest. When a new homeowner decided to explore the basement of his recently purchased house, he came across a pile of heavy bricks on the floor. Curious as to what they were doing there, he decided to move them out of the way, only to find that they were weighing down a trap door. He slowly opened it and discovered that there was an 8-foot deep by 4-foot wide cement well filled with murky water. Instead of digging deeper into the mystery, the guy snapped a few photos of it, filled the well with stones to seal it off, and ended up selling the house. Not every dark secret in a basement leads to a happy ending, if any, really. Sometimes it's just better to leave the mysteries buried and move on. With all that said, I'm gonna move on. I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.